It started with a red light where a green chirp used to be. My company badge did not beep, the glass door stayed locked, and the security guard looked everywhere except at my eyes while muttering something about system updates. I did not raise my voice, and I did not ask for a manager. I simply turned around, walked down the concrete walkway, and took the side entrance that required a physical key no one had remembered to revoke. My cubicle was exactly as I had left it the night before. The monitor still had a yellow sticky note reading "Remember to breathe," written in my own hand during a server crash back in 2018. That was the night I slept on the carpet with a stale vending machine snack while saving our primary database from a permanent corruption loop. Nobody remembered that night, just like nobody remembered that I was the developer who built the core predictive algorithm keeping this company profitable. Before I even unpacked my lunch, I noticed our main client dashboard had been lagging for 6 days due to an unresolved data bottleneck. Our new department director, a man named Sterling who spent most of his afternoon playing virtual golf, had completely missed it. I fixed the code, submitted the patch to an unread change log, and opened my quiet desk salad. I worked in silence until a calendar invite popped up on my screen titled "Restructuring Meeting Mandatory Attendance." I walked into the main conference room at 9 sharp. Sterling was leaning against the floor-to-ceiling glass, dressed in an expensive suit that looked like it was trying too hard to seem important. He did not offer me a chair or ask how my morning was going. Instead, he pulled out a folded piece of paper and told me the company was streamlining legacy positions to focus on modern operational growth. He explained that my role was no longer aligned with their long-term vision, pronouncing the word vision like he was reading a script he had just memorized in the hallway. I unfolded the letter, saw my termination notice, and looked at his signature at the bottom. He waited for me to cry, to mention my decade of loyalty, or to plead for my pension. I simply refolded the paper, looked him in the eye, and told him noted. A young human resources representative named Shauna escorted me out of the building as if I were a security hazard. I was not even allowed to grab my favorite coffee mug, a gift from an intern I had mentored years ago. Shauna whispered that she was sorry and had no idea my name was on the list. I told her not to worry, stepped into the elevator, and allowed myself a tiny smile as the doors closed on the quiet office floor. By the time I reached my kitchen table at home, my cat was waiting for her morning treats. I opened my personal laptop, a plain black machine without any corporate tracking software or company stickers. I logged into a secure legal portal that had never been linked to the company network and pulled up an old document from 2010. The original software licensing agreement between my private firm and the enterprise I had just been fired from. The contract had a very specific clause deep in the administrative terms. It stated that if the founding technical architect was terminated without documented cause, the exclusive software license would immediately revoke within 48 hours. My legal name was listed on the original intellectual property filing as the primary rights holder, a detail Sterling had never bothered to look up. I prepared the formal revocation notice and hovered my mouse over the send button. My attorney, a veteran lawyer named Arthur who had helped me draft the original agreement, reviewed the filing over a secure video link. He confirmed that the contract was completely airtight and that the corporation had zero legal grounds to bypass the revocation clause. He asked me if I was entirely sure I wanted to pull the trigger on a multi-million-dollar system. I told him that they made their choice at 9 in the morning, and I was simply making mine at 9:16. The official legal notice was delivered directly to the corporate legal department inbox with a clean, 48-hour countdown attached. There were no emotional rants, no threats, and no dramatic demands in the email body. It was just a cold, legally binding notice that their core analytical engine was about to lose its operating license. I shut the laptop, poured myself a fresh cup of tea, and enjoyed the complete silence of my living room. Back at the corporate headquarters, the executive suite was descending into absolute chaos. Sterling slammed the printed notice onto the boardroom table, demanding to know who this external owner was and why they were threatening the company platform. None of the junior managers or corporate lawyers had any idea that my maiden name was the registered owner of the core software license. They spent 2 hours frantically searching employee rosters for a person who did not exist on their active payroll. It was a quiet junior developer named Julian who finally connected the dots while digging through legacy code archives. He found old system documentation showing that my personal entity owned the master encryption keys running their primary prediction tools. He explained to the entire room that I had not just built their back-end infrastructure, I had personally licensed it to the company over a decade ago. The room went entirely silent as the legal team realized the magnitude of the mistake. Our head legal counsel read through the original contract terms and confirmed that the platform had no bypass protocols. Sterling turned pale as he realized that the quiet employee he had dismissed hours earlier held the absolute legal rights to their entire software suite. Without that predictive core, their client dashboards would go dark, their investor metrics would collapse, and their upcoming quarterly reports would show zero operational data. He realized he had just fired the foundation holding up his whole building. By Thursday morning, the administrative system began to slow down as the license expiration approached. Warning alerts started filling up the internal engineering channels, flagging authentication failures across every major client database. The technical staff tried to route around the security wall, but every core module was encrypted using a unique master key that required my personal administrative authorization to reset. Sterling attempted to send out a company-wide email claiming the system issues were just routine maintenance, but the major enterprise clients quickly noticed their dashboards going blank. Internal panic reached an all-time high as the countdown timer on the diagnostic server ticked past its final 12 hours. The management team realized that no amount of corporate buzzwords or emergency meetings could rewrite a legally binding intellectual property contract. I spent that afternoon sitting in a quiet local cafe, enjoying a warm pastry while monitoring the public system status reports on my tablet. My phone began ringing continuously with blocked numbers and frantic messages from corporate representatives, but I left it on silent. They had spent years treating my quiet work as an invisible, replaceable asset that required no recognition or respect. When you spend over a decade silently building the floor that everyone else walks on, people easily forget that you hold the blueprints to the entire structure. They assumed my quiet nature was a sign of weakness, never realizing it was simply the patience of someone who knew exactly how the system was constructed. As the final hours of the countdown expired, I took a slow sip of my coffee and watched the server logs quietly drift into complete, permanent silence.